let's say you have a goal. It's your life goal. It can be any arbitrary goal. Let's say, for example, your goal is to live a happy and fulfilled life. And it really doesn't matter which goal you choose. You can just exchange it. The bad thing about 99.9% of all goals is that it's not as straightforward as it looks on this picture. It's like there's not one way and one point and now you have like achieved your goal. It looks much more like this. Like there are 1 million different directions you can take, and the thing is now, how do you distinguish the good directions, the good ways to achieve a goal or to get closer to a goal from the bad ways to get closer to a goal? Do you just guess? Do you just choose like one of the directions and say, yeah, it's gonna be fine? Or is there a better way? And yeah, there actually is a better way, and I found it. It's in connection with the thing I study, and it is in psychology. And the interesting thing is that people in psychology and like scientists in general have been working on exactly this problem for a really, really long time. And in the last time for my course, for a course of my studies, it's called Introduction to Research Methodology. I really delve into this, and I really love this course because it's so clear and you really learn on how research works and how if you want to conduct your own research. So if you want to find the best possible way to, for example, be as happy as possible, then you can use the knowledge from this course to design your own studies, design your own research. And also, if you don't want to do all this by yourself, you can use all the knowledge from all the psychologists that have worked like in the years before us, and you learn how to read studies and how to distinguish a good study from a bad study, which is super important. Okay, let's just dive right into it. So first point is, first, hey, my name is Elias. Welcome to the Rational Optimization Podcast. My goal in this podcast is to find out what is, all things considered, the most rational thing to do. And this means two things. The first point is that I try to search for what are the best possible goals that one can have. And the second point is that I search for what are the most optimal ways to achieve them. Today, we're going to focus on the second point. So we're going to search for a technique to find out what are the best possible ways to achieve the best possible goals after you found them out. But if you want to learn more about the philosophical part, then go to some of my other videos where I search for the best possible goals. But let's start. So, intuition sucks. Your intuition sucks, my intuition sucks, the intuition of nearly all people just sucks. So the thing is that just because you think that something is logical doesn't mean that it's true. There are a lot of examples for this. An example is in the Dark Ages when they did like the bloodletting, where they cut like the veins of the people and let like the blood out to make them healthy again. And there is a really clear problem with this. It's that like it seems kind of like logical that like, yeah, of course, if you're sick, then it's like there are the liquids in your body, the humors, they are in the wrong balance, and that's why we have to bring them into balance again. But it doesn't mean that it's true. And why is the intuition so bad? Like, except from this example, it's because our brain is full of biases. And so bias or heuristic, those are ways our brain thinks that are not optimal if your goal is to be as true as possible. They are, like, our brain is pretty smart, so there are good approximations to the truth, and it's like a way of our brain to save energy, to make the world that is really, really complicated much simpler. And yeah, with those biases, the problem is that our intuition that relies on a lot of biases and heuristics is often false. And one really good example for this is that our brain loves metaphors and stories. And one example for this is okay, our brain loves metaphors and stories, and from those metaphors and stories, our brain thinks that the things that have good metaphors behind them, that have good stories behind them, are true or are more true than other things that are not easy to grasp and that are not easy to understand. An example for this is that Freud, when he came up with his theory of catharsis. So catharsis is like, it means like venting anger. So his theory was that if you have a psychological problem, like a suppressed idea inside of you, and you suppress it all the time, and then there is like some kind of pressure building up in you, and it has to come out some way. And this pressure, he used the metaphor of like, because of a steam engine, because like in the steam engine there's like also a lot of pressure building up, and if you're not careful, it's gonna explode. So you have to let the pressure out in some way. And so he came up with his theory of catharsis, where you like try to find this thing that builds the pressure up inside of you and you leave it out. And it's like really logical, it's a good story, it's good to understand, there's a good metaphor behind it, and so we think it's true. But the thing is, that doesn't make it true. So all this long talking is just to say, like, just because something sounds logical, just because something is easy to grasp, easy to understand, there's a good story behind it, doesn't make it true. So for the venting anger, so like the idea of going into if you're angry at someone, you go into like a rage room and destroy stuff. This is a good idea, it sounds logical, but it is not true. Like the scientific research shows that this is not true. So yeah, your intuition sucks, my intuition sucks, human intuition is not, like, it is pretty impressive what it can do with how little information it has, but it's not optimal if you want to find exactly what is true, if you really want to find the best possible way. Another problem with our minds is the so-called confirmation bias. You probably already heard about it. It's just another example of how our intuition tricks us, and it's that if we have an idea that we believe is true, then we're much more likely to find stuff that confirms this idea. So we will literally go out, like unconsciously, when you believe something. So for example, I've got some creatine here. If I believe like creatine is good for me, and yeah, if this is my belief, and then I'm like, okay, now I'm going to research about creatine. Then I'm probably only going to look at the exact at evidence that supports my claim. I'm probably going to ignore the other evidence or interpret ambiguous evidence in a way that makes me believe, like, keep my belief that creatine is something that is good. By the way, I really believe that creatine is something that is good. But yeah, so this is another bias, and there are a lot more biases, and I will make a long form podcast where I go through all of them, all of the thinking errors we have and ways to combat them and how to use logical reasoning. But today it's not about biases. Today is about how scientists, how philosophers come to gain knowledge. So yeah, we already had this, your intuition sucks. The interesting thing is not only intuition sucks, but also the experience of one person sucks. Okay, it's not 100% true. Like, your intuition doesn't, your experience is not wrong or something. Your experience is probably right, but it is hard to gain knowledge from only your own experience, and like to prove a theory from only your own experience, because there are some problems if you're like only one person that only looks at his or her own experience. Yeah, and research combats this and has like techniques to be better, but I'm gonna explain why is the experience of one person not as good as like big research. And the first problem is that as one person you don't have a comparison group. So for example, if I start taking creatine, I just have it here, so this is like my example now. If I start taking creatine and I notice that I can concentrate better because creatine is good for your body and your brain, research says. But let's say I didn't read any research and I just start taking creatine and I'm like, now I can, like, since I'm taking creatine, I can concentrate better. This so creatine must be good for your concentration. So the problem here is that I don't have a comparison group, so I don't know what would have happened if I didn't take creatine. So it would maybe just like my concentration would just get better anyway. Like maybe it's just because I'm sleeping a little bit better in the last time or anything. So if I don't have a comparison group, I don't know what would have happened if I just didn't take the creatine, and I can just see like, oh yeah, I took creatine, I can concentrate better, but that doesn't mean that creatine makes me concentrate better or anything, because I have nothing to compare it to. Like, I don't know if the creatine was the thing causing the better concentration, or like the more known fact of creatine, like the muscle growth and the strength increasement, but it could also be any other reason. So this is the first problem with the experience of one person, and research combats this by having comparison groups or control groups where, for example, if they do a study about creatine, they have one group taking creatine and another group taking a placebo that looks like creatine and is like, but is not creatine. So they can see, like, is there really concentration improvement in this group that is taking creatine compared to the other group. So this is one point why the experience of one person is not as good as what we can find in research. And the next point is that you can't control for compounds as one person. And let me explain what this means. So if I'm one person and I'm testing this creatine, then I will in the future, like, I will start taking it, and yeah, maybe I feel this improvement of my concentration, but my life is really, there are a lot of things going on. So as I already said, for example, with the sleeping better, or maybe I'm starting also with a new workout routine while I'm doing this. And so maybe because of this new workout routine, my concentration gets better because like everything flows better and stuff, and so I can just concentrate better. And this would be a confound, so it's another explanation for why my concentration got better. Or yeah, you can just imagine any other reason. Yeah, I'm sleeping better or something. And if I'm only one person, I can't control for other changes like this. Or yeah, let's say I'm starting to do yoga, and because of the yoga I can, or no, I don't know if my better concentration comes from the creatine or if it comes from the yoga. And I can't control for this because I'm only one person, and in my life there are so many things going on. Like, even if I say, okay, I'm not going to start yoga while I'm doing this creatine experiment, there are a lot of other things that are going on and that could cause the change. So it doesn't have to be the creatine. In research, on the other hand, the researchers can really control, that it's like just one variable. I don't know, like with the creatine example, I think it would actually be really complicated, and in the end the mass would be the control, because if you have like really many people, and there are some people that start yoga, some people that end with yoga, so in the end it will balance out, and for one person it doesn't balance out, but for many other things they also, like if you're in the lab, you can really control, okay, this is exactly the things you're going to eat, this is exactly you can just control anything, and this way you can rule out many confounds. So again, a confound would be another reason for the research findings, so another reason for why I can concentrate better when I'm taking creatine. Okay, next point. How do researchers, so why is research better than this thing we have in our minds, like this, our personal experience or our intuition? So research, or how does research go about being better than the things I just told you are all shit? So research works in 5 steps, and these 5 steps are illustrated in the so-called empirical cycle by De Groot, but it doesn't matter by whom it is. It's just a 5-step cycle, and this 5-step cycle consists out of 5 points. Sorry, and this is how all research basically works. So if you want to find something out, this is like the template that you use. It nearly all researchers, or especially like in psychology and in medicine, use. And so especially in psychology. So the first step is that you have an observation. So I really didn't want to use this creatine example. I don't know why, but I have some creatine here, so this is going to be my example for this podcast. So if my observation is, okay, I started taking creatine and I can somehow concentrate better. This is my experience. So it's not like a valid, it's not like a proof or anything. By the way, this proving is, that you don't prove anything, but this is something we go to later. But if I have this finding in my experience, so this observation that I take creatine and now I can concentrate better, then I have an idea. Okay, creatine makes you concentrate better. Maybe this is true, and this is what we call a theory. Or would be a really short, really succinct theory. So it's like just one claim, one proposition. So my claim is that creatine increases concentration, and so this would be the second step in the empirical cycle. The first step is I have the observation. Okay, I take creatine, I can concentrate better. Second step is my theory. So my theory now is that creatine increases concentration. Okay, so now we go into step number 3 of the before this, there are different types of theories you can make. There are falsifiable theories and unfalsifiable theories. And there is a problem if you make unfalsifiable theories. So an unfalsifiable theory would be a theory where you can't find evidence against the theory. So an example for an unfalsifiable theory would be that by the way, this is true, like there is a unicorn living in my room, and it uses its magic powers to hide from humans. So yeah, this is true. So now you try to test it. The problem with this is that no matter what you find, this theory can't be disproven. So let's say you go into my room and you start searching for a unicorn and you find it, and it's like, oh, this theory is true. But let's say you can't find it, then my theory is also true because I just said that this unicorn has like magic powers and it hides from humans. So no matter how much you search, you can never disprove that there is this unicorn living here in my room. And the problem with those unfalsifiable theories is that you can just make as many of them as you want. So you can just like, oh no, there's not only a unicorn living here, there's also like a little goblin and I don't know, like a mermaid living in my sink, but all with magic powers and hiding. Yeah, I hope you see what the problem here is. So you can't really get closer to truth if you just make unfalsifiable claims, if you just make unfalsifiable theories. And our goal is to get closer to truth. And yeah, with this is not possible. So what is a good theory? A good theory is falsifiable, because with falsifiable theories, you can get closer to what is true. And an example for a falsifiable theory would be creatine increases concentration, or let's say money doesn't increase happiness after you earn more than the average salary, or money increases happiness, or money doesn't increase happiness at all. Those would be all falsifiable theories, because like for the money example, if I say money doesn't increase happiness, then you could disprove it or find evidence against it by just for doing an experiment. So you like measure somebody's happiness and then you give him a lot of money and then you measure his happiness again and then you see what changed. Or like probably in this case you would do this in the long term, so you would not measure like directly after you give him money, but you want to know how money influences happiness in the long term. And yeah, this is how you could go about disproving it. And if you find like, oh no, actually the guy that earns 2 million instead of 1 million is more happy, or I don't know if twice as happy or something, but you could find evidence against the theory that money doesn't increase happiness, or you could find evidence against the theory that creatine increases concentration. If you just test a lot of people, give them creatine, and you find like, oh, they can concentrate exactly as well or even worse than the people that didn't take creatine, then you would find evidence against the theory, and this way you could get closer to truth. And it's not that you can just like stack theory of theory of theory, because you can find evidence against theories. So we're still at step number 2 of the empirical cycle. So first step was you observe, you see something. Oh, I see that when I take creatine, I can concentrate better. Second step is you make a theory. So my theory now is that creatine increases concentration. Step number 3, now you make a prediction. Prediction is a specific, you derive it, you deduce it from the theory, and it's like a specific point in which the theory, how the theory would manifest itself. So my prediction could be, if I give like one of my friends 5 grams of creatine a day, or let's say 3 grams of creatine a day, for 2 weeks, he will be able to concentrate, he will like solve a Rubik's Cube faster after 2 weeks because he can concentrate better. This would be like a concrete prediction. So it's something that can really be right or wrong, like that you can really test. So it's a concrete way of testing your theory, and a concrete way how you can find evidence for or against your theory. By the way, to say the thing about proving a theory or not proving a theory. So you cannot prove a theory. So there's no point on which you say, okay, now this theory is proven. You can only find evidence for a theory and strengthen a theory. So no matter how many people I test with creatine and say, okay, creatine increases their concentration, I can never prove that creatine increases concentration. I can only find more and more evidence and be like 99.999% sure, but it's never 100%. But this is just the feature of our world, that our world is complicated, super complicated, and you just can't, you can't prove anything, but you can also not disprove anything. So even if you find a lot of evidence against something, it's more way of words. So you can be pretty sure that something is not true and pretty sure that something is true. But in the end, what we do is only we search for information, we find new information, and in the end, you will strengthen or weaken a theory. So you will find evidence for or against the theory, and you are more sure or less sure that the theory is true. But you're never at 100%. But this is more in the direction of epistemology, if you can know anything at all. And I will make another podcast about this as well. But so just so you know, there is no point on which a theory, on which you can say a theory is proven. But enough with this. So we make a prediction. So we have an observation, theory, and a prediction now. What do we do with this prediction? So obviously we go and test this prediction. So now we go out in the world or in the lab or however you want to test this prediction. And yeah, then you test it. And so, for example, I start giving my friend, feeding him creatine every day, and after 2 weeks, I check if he's faster with the Rubik's Cube. Of course, I have to test with the Rubik's Cube how fast he is before as well. And this would, by the way, be a bad experiment because it's also just one person, and it's also not controlled for confounds, because maybe he got better with maybe he practiced solving the Rubik's Cube in the 2 weeks, or yeah, there are many flaws with this, but we're going to go to what is a good experiment and what not. But this is just an example. So I test my friend, and oh, he indeed is faster at solving the Rubik's Cube. So now we evaluate our information, and now we have information. Now we know if our theory is supported or not supported. So let's say, yeah, he actually got faster. So now we didn't prove the theory, but the theory is just not refuted. We just found data that is in line with the theory, and we strengthened the theory. Let's say he didn't get faster. Then in this case, we found data that is not in line with the theory, but that doesn't mean that we refuted the theory or proved that the theory is wrong. We just found evidence against the theory, and we weakened the theory. So after this evaluation, this is like a cycle. So this is like my new observation, and from this I maybe change my theory, or from this point you can change your theory, go with a new prediction, go test again, and go this cycle, circle, and get closer to truth. So as I said, you will never be 100% sure that something is true, but you can be 99.999. Like you can get really close to knowing that something is true or something is false by just testing it, and testing it. So let's go deeper into this. Let's say you want to make a theory. A theory, as I said, is like a really simple theory is a claim. So it's like the claim that creatine improves concentration. It's just like one sentence, one really simple claim. This would be like my claim, my simple theory. And the interesting thing is that I really found this interesting when I found it out, is like there are 3 types of claims, and like every claim that you make, because in our everyday life we make such claims like every day, like when in your life you're always making claims, and all of those claims you make in your life can essentially belong to 3 buckets. So there are 3 types of claims, and those 3 types of claims explain are different ways of explaining how things in the world connect to each other. Yeah, and in the moment I understood this, it really helped me to see the world much more clear. So I'm working a lot, like taking a lot of notes and really trying to understand the world in like a philosophical way. And all my thoughts, they were, when I understood that there are like 3 simple types of making claims about things, and there are different ways to prove those different types of claims. It really helped me organize my thoughts, because I knew, okay, now I'm making an association claim, now I'm making a correlation, a causal claim, and just knowing this difference is really nice in your everyday life, because you can think much more clear, because you can give the things you believe like a name, or you can give your claims names, which really helps. But enough of this, let's just start with the first type of claim. So the first and the most simple kind of claim that you can make is a so-called frequency claim. And a frequency claim is a claim about only one variable, and a variable is so what is a variable? A variable is something that varies. So it is everything that can have like different so-called levels. So for example, how much creatine I take would be a variable, or how good I can concentrate would be a variable, or how much handstands I do a day would be a variable, or I don't know, how often I go to the gym. Like you can go like for everything. You can like nearly everything you talk about can be expressed as a variable. Like everything where there are possible differences between humans, between like there are variables for everything. Like even like this podcast would have different variables. So like how many people listen to it would be a variable of this podcast, and it can differ because like okay, maybe I have a different episode and there are like more or less people watching or listening to this, and so this would also be a variable. And the things the types of variables I was talking about right now, those are all quantitative variables. So quantitative variable means that there are levels that are higher than others. So for example, for my creatine intake, I can take like more or less. I can take 1 gram or 2 grams or 10 grams, and this so the numbers are meaningful. So there are numbers that are higher than other numbers, and numbers that are lower than other numbers. The same, like, okay, how many likes this podcast gets can be higher or lower, and there's a difference. It doesn't mean that it has to be better or worse. In this case, of course, it would be better with more likes, but this is just, it just means that something can be more or less. So yeah, for example, weight or size, like it's not better or worse to be to weigh more or less, basically, but it's just higher or lower. There are also not only quantitative variables, there are also categorical variables, and categorical variables, they also have levels. So a level would be for creatine, for example, a level of creatine intake would be how much creatine you take. So 1 gram would be a level for your intake of creatine. 2 grams would be another level, and the level of 2 grams is higher than the level of 1 gram. Common sense. But for categorical variables, the levels are not higher than each other. So for example, your gender, if you're like male or female, this, or I don't know, there are maybe I should take another example. So forget this. Let's say your favorite color. Your favorite color is your favorite color is a categorical variable. So it has different levels, but none is like higher than the other ones. Like it's not that red is better than blue or whatever. It's like if you have your favorite color, it's just like any of the colors. Or another good example from the book that I can think of categorical variables is like if you test like different types of monkeys, like you have chimpanzees and bonobos and like I don't know, and you do tests with them, and this would be a categorical variable, so the type of monkey. Or yeah, your favorite color is also one, and there's none higher than the other ones. This is the thing about categorical variables. So there are two types of variables, categorical and quantitative. For quantitative, there are values, levels of the variable that can be higher than others. For categorical variables, they are not higher. They are all just different categories. So which category are you in? And so let's go back to the frequency claim, the thing we were actually talking about. So frequency claim is a claim about only one variable. So it's the most simple claim you can make. So for example, the average amount of beer that people in Tilburg University drink is, I don't know, I have no idea. Like, I don't drink, but let's say it's like 1 liter, or let's say it's 2-3 liters a month. I don't know, for if you adjust for everything, let's say 3 liters a month. So this is the average amount of beer people drink. This would be a frequency claim. Or how much people how often people smile a day. This would be also, or how often people lie a day. This would be also a frequency claim. So you only make a claim about one variable. Or let's go with a good one. Is how often people go to the gym. So let's go with the example. People on average go to the gym. I don't know. Like the average student goes to the gym 1 time a week. I've also no idea, but let's say this would be a frequency claim. And yeah, so we have one variable, how often students go to the gym, and we have the frequency. So we make a claim about one variable only. So only that students go to the gym 1 time a week. So it's enough. This is a frequency claim. I'm going to explain more exactly how to interrogate if a study supports a frequency claim. It's going to come later, but for now, so just so you know what a frequency claim is and what a variable is. Let's go to the next type of claim. The next type of claim is a so-called association claim. And in the slides, I used like AI image generation for my slides, and it says association with double AI, and it's a little bit weird, but yeah, you know what I mean. So it's an association claim, and an association claim is a claim about 2 variables, and this is so about the connection of 2 variables. And so what does it mean? So for example, if I say creatine intake is correlated with good concentration. It is different than saying creatine causes or creatine makes you concentrate better. Because now if I say taking creatine increases concentration, this would mean that this is actually the next type of claim. I can show you so it's a causal claim. So this would mean that if you take creatine, then this happens to you. But an association claim is 1 level below this. So it's just that you look out in the world and you see, oh, people that take creatine also can concentrate better. But you don't say that creatine makes them concentrate better. You just say people that take creatine concentrate better. So this would be an example of a positive association. So positive association doesn't mean that it's something good or something like there are positive and negative and zero associations, but it doesn't mean like good and bad associations. It just means that a positive association means that high in one level means high in the other level. So high creatine intake means high concentration. But you could also do it like the other way around. You could say maybe, yeah, you could say sugar intake and health. Like I don't know why this podcast got into a health nutrition lecture. I really try to only explain this, but this is the stuff that comes to mind in the moment. So sugar and health, sugar intake and health. This would be an example for negative or inverse association. So if your sugar intake is high, your health is low. If your sugar intake is low, your health is high. So yeah, this would be different from a positive association where high means high. So and there's also zero association, and this is just if you don't find any connection between two variables. So if I take creatine and I don't find any difference in concentration, then this would mean that there is a zero association. So just it doesn't matter how much creatine you take, or no, I can't predict how good you can concentrate just from knowing how much creatine you take, because there's just no connection between the two. So pretty simple. Those association claims, to visualize them, you can use scatter plots, and this is really nice because then you can, if you have a scatter plot, you have like a diagram and you see like, okay, on one axis is like the amount of creatine you take, on the other axis is like the amount of how concentrated you are, and then you can make dots for all the people that you test. And let's say a person that takes like no creatine and can concentrate like okay, would have a dot in some point, and like another person that takes a lot of creatine and can concentrate really good would have a dot in the far upper corner. And like if you have a lot of dots, then you can kind of like draw a line through those dots, like the most average line, and this is the so-called correlation. Okay, no, the slope of this line, so how steep this line is the correlation coefficient R. And this correlation coefficient R is a number, and this can show the strength of an association. So if this correlation coefficient is 0, then we would have a zero association. So this would mean that the slope is 0, so it's just like a straight line and the dots are scattered all around it. If the correlation coefficient R would be 1, this would mean it's a perfect correlation. So it's like you can exactly know from how much creatine you make how much you concentrate. It's not like this in real life. Like you never find a perfect association. I don't know. You nearly never find I don't know if you ever find a perfect association. So it can be like somewhere between this, between 0 and 1. Let's say for the creatine and concentration example, it's probably like 0.1. I don't think it's such a strong association or correlation, but there's one. Well, probably it's even less. But so this is how steep the line is. So how directly it correlates. Like if the points are scattered around a lot on this scatter plot, so if there's no strong connection between creatine intake and concentration, then the line wouldn't be as steep, so the correlation coefficient would be lower, and in the end, yeah, we would have it's not such a strong association or correlation. Also, this correlation coefficient in the negative association, it would just be negative. So the most negative it could get would be -1, and so it can be anywhere from +1, 0, -1. +1 would mean so R equals +1 would mean a perfect positive association. R equals 0 would be a perfect it would be a 0 perfect zero association, and r equals -1 would be a perfect negative association. But in real life, it's always somewhere in between. But whenever you see like an association claim within R, so you have if you want to find the connection between creatine and concentration, I really have to find a different example for this podcast, but I'm not sure if I will. Then just look. If you read a study and you see an R, and in the study it says like, okay, R of 0.1, R of 0.1. This would mean there's a fairly weak association, but still there is some association. So creatine indeed increases your concentration. If they would say, okay, it's 0.0001, then you can be like, okay, there is no connection. But if they say it's 0.9, then okay, it's not like, then we would all be taking creatine like crazy. But yeah, so this is how you can use this correlation coefficient R if you read a study. Let's go to the next claim. The next claim is a causal claim. A causal claim is, as I said, is a thing I was talking all around. I'm going to use different examples now. Let's go with money and happiness. Let's say, if I say money makes you happier. So this would be a causal claim. So money causes you to get happier. It's different than when I make a association claim and say, okay, people with high money are also happier. No, I say money makes you happier. And this is a really, really important difference to know. So now I'm not only claiming that rich people are happier, I'm also claiming that money causes this. And yeah, this is just an important difference that you have to know. And it's much more complicated to prove a causal claim than an association claim. But yeah, how to prove this, I'm going to explain how to prove this actually right now. So how to find evidence for the different types of claims. This is like the really important part now. So this is if you want to make research yourself, or if you read psychological research, you have to understand what kind of evidence supports which kind of claim, because yeah, this is how you can either design your own research, or how you can distinguish a good study from a bad study. Because if you read a study, and like before I took this course and really dove into this topic, I would have no idea like what is a good study, what is a bad study. But there are some pretty simple steps that you can use to compare different studies and to find out what makes a good study. So how to find evidence for to judge if a study is good or bad, or to make your own study. The first step that you have to do for if you want to make your own study, or if you want to look if another okay, no, this is the step you do when you make your own study. It's called operationalizing. If you read a study, you just read how they operationalized their variables, but this is also really important for both things that you can do. So what is operationalizing? Operationalizing is turning a conceptual variable into a operationalized variable. So what does it mean? This means that you make an idea concrete. So if I say money money increases happiness, what is money and what is happiness? So like this is like a beautiful thing to say, money increases happiness. Would make the world so much easier if this were true. But how exactly do I want to go about measuring this? Because I can't just, there's no, okay, for money actually there is a number, but for many things, for example for happiness, there is no number that you can see, and there is no number that you can just read and say, okay, this is your happiness. Oh, your happiness is a 8. No, you have to find a way to operationalize the thing you want to measure. So for money, you have to operationalize money. And an example for operationalizing money would be, it's called the ladder of life question. and it is just a question you give to someone, and this question goes like I will paraphrase it. This question is that imagine you have like a ladder with 10 steps, and on top of the ladder would mean that you have like your perfect life, exactly what you want, and like everything is your life is going in a way that you like it, and like on the lowest step would mean that your life is not going your way at all. It's like really bad, and yeah, you would like to really change a lot. And on which ladder of the life which level of the ladder do you stand? And this is a way how psychologists, okay, I think I didn't paraphrase this perfectly, but this is a way how psychologists measure a concept like happiness. And this is really complicated, and there are a lot of discussions going on if what is a good operationalization, what is a bad operationalization. Also, you can look, like there are so many different difficult, especially like in psychology, there are so many difficult constructs that you have to operationalize, things like intelligence, depression, and yeah, all those concentration, all those things are super complicated. Like there are simple things, like for example, your weight. Yeah, okay, you just step on the scale. Like my operationalization for a person's weight is that, yeah, step on the scale. Like I don't know, in best if you want to have really exactly, then let's say, okay, step on the scale in your underwear, and then I have your exact weight. And but like there's nothing like this. There's no scale for happiness, and also for money. You have to really operationalize it, because like what does it mean how much money people have? Is it like their income? Is it their savings? Is it their net worth? Is it their stocks? Is it what they have on their bank account? Like actually it's not there. There is no one number that shows like how wealthy you are or how much money you have. There are a lot of different numbers that all together build this up, and you have to operationalize how. So what do I mean by how much money people have, and what do I mean by how happy people are? So those are, for this example, those are two variables that you have to operationalize. And now it is also important to distinguish a good operationalization from a bad operationalization, and this is the first way how you find out. It's the first step of finding good evidence. The first step of finding good evidence is to check for the so-called construct validity. And construct validity is the question, do you really measure what you want to measure? So if we say, does money increase happiness? And I operationalize happiness with this ladder of life question, then I can now, if I want to check the construct validity of my operationalization of happiness, then I would really look into if this operationalization of happiness is a good operationalization, if I really measure happiness, or if I measure something else, because it would be shit like in the past when people tried to measure intelligence, they were like measuring the head circumference of people, and like good that they did it, but it's not measuring the actual thing. Like you're not measuring intelligence by measuring how big the head of somebody is. Like this is not a good example for why intuition sucks, because like yeah, intuitively it makes sense. Like a bigger head means more intelligent, but like it's not true. There's just happiness as other things that determine how happy you are. Okay, so construct validity. How do we check if a construct is valid? So if operationalization, if we really measure what we want to measure. And there are two parts of a valid construct. Oh, I just had an idea for another really good example for what is really hard to operationalize conceptual variable. And this example is like, I'm trying to find I'm trying to find what is the best possible goal. And so a variable of a goal would be how good this goal is. But how would you measure this? And this is like a really hard question. I have to work on this. But how can you get a number for how good a goal is? Like, is there any way to do this? Could you say like, okay, it has this amount of arguments going for it, this amount of arguments going against it, and like, this is how I get like the number in the end, like how good the goal is or how bad the goal is, or is there some way? And I don't know. This is something I have to work on. But now, reliability and validity. So operationalization can be reliable and valid, or one of the two, or none of the two. So what does those two things mean? So we start with reliability. Reliability is, if you imagine like a goal that you can shoot at, let's say at a shooting range, you're like shooting at a target, and reliability would mean how close your shots are together. So if you have like really tight grouping, so if you have a really clear group, then you have a really reliable gun, for example, in this example, because it's not like shooting anywhere; it's shooting at the same place. So you're really reliable. And what does it mean in research? Sorry, this example is like, it's not explaining how what reliability is in research. In research, it would be it's the reliability of an operationalization. So, for example, if I want to measure intelligence and I do an IQ test, and today you have an IQ of like 105, so a little bit above average, and then you come again next week and now you have an IQ of 90. Okay, that's weird. There's a pretty big difference. And like, you come next week again and now you have 120. Like, this would mean that this IQ test is not reliable, because like, no matter if like intelligence should be something that is kind of stable. So if I measure it again and again and again, and each time it's like super big differences, there must be something wrong with my measuring tool. So this is what reliability basically is. And reliability, you can test it. So there are like different ways to check if a measure is reliable in psychology, and or in many sciences. But one of them is, for example, the retest reliability. So this is exactly what I just explained. So with the IQ test, if you do the test again after 1 week and your value is really significantly different, then there is no retest reliability. And so this is something you have to check. Another thing you have to check is or you don't have to check it always, but if there's something, if you rate the variable yourself, so if you say, or if there are raters for variables, so it's not let's say we want to measure intelligence, but we measure it by looking how well you solve a problem. And so there's somebody that stands there next to you with like, I don't know, a piece of paper, and he looks how well you solve a problem. In the end, he gives you like a number for your intelligence. This would be a rater. So it's like a person that observes you and that looks at you and that says, okay, you're this intelligent. And inter-rater reliability would mean that if I have, like, for example, 2 raters next to each other, and they would both look at you like doing this task and be like, okay, you are this much intelligent, then their ratings must be pretty similar, because like if one of them says, oh yeah, you're super intelligent, and the other one is like, oh no, pretty stupid, then we wouldn't have inter-rater reliability. And this would also mean like, okay, we are not measuring intelligence here, we're measuring We're not measuring anything here actually, because if the raters are so far apart from each other, it's the same with when the tests are super far apart from each other. Like something must be wrong here. We're not measuring anything really. The third part on how to check for reliability is the internal reliability. So internal reliability is if you have a questionnaire with many questions. So for example, for happiness, there are different types of questionnaires where you have like different questions. Like for example, my life is going as I want it to go. If I could live my life over again, I would change almost nothing. And for all those questions, you can give like an answer from strongly agree to strongly disagree with like 5 steps. And they are all supposed to measure happiness. And in the end, the average should measure your happiness. The problem is if you have like if all those questions should measure happiness and one is like strongly agree and the other is like, oh, I strongly disagree, then this is a sign that you're probably not measuring happiness in a good way. So it seems like you are, but you are not, because it's not like, are you really measuring happiness if some of your points are really high and some are really low? Like there must be a problem here as well. So we have test-retest reliability, inter-rater reliability, and internal reliability. But reliability is not everything. I have a really cool example for a perfect reliable measure that is not valid at all. And this would be, okay, let's start to measure intelligence. And I say, intelligence is how big your head is. So I start measuring your head circumference and like, okay, yeah, you have this head circumference, so you're this intelligent. Let's test for the different reliabilities. So come again in 1 week, I measure your head circumference again. Perfect. I have nearly exactly the same measurement again. This is a really good test-retest reliability. Now let's check for inter-rater reliability. I get somebody else. Okay, please measure this, your head circumference. This other person measures your head circumference. Oh, also pretty similar value to as I got. So we also have a really good inter-rater reliability. Okay, internal reliability, in this case, there is no internal reliability because we don't do like multiple tests. But yeah, this is... because it's no questionnaire, we don't have internal reliability. But so this would be a very, very reliable measure for intelligence. So head circumference is super reliable. The problem is it's not really a reliable measure for intelligence because it's not measuring intelligence. And this is the validity. Are you really measuring what you want to measure? Is it something that you just say, or yeah, are you really measuring something you want to measure? So this is amazing. Now we know how to measure something, or now we actually know that we're measuring something. The question is, do we measure the right thing? So this is validity. Do we measure the thing that we want to measure? And I just realized this whole podcast is getting much too long, too much information in one episode. So I decided to split it up into 2. The next one is gonna come out right today after this one. So just jump to the next episode if you still have the mental capacity to keep on listening. And there I keep explaining not only how you measure something, but how you measure exactly the thing you want to measure, and also how you can look into what researchers do and see if they are measuring the thing that interests you or if they measure something else. And further, how you really go into research, how you really study, where you find a study, how you can use the knowledge of those thousands of psychologists that have worked their ass off for the last many years, and how you can access this knowledge and how you don't have to do every study yourself. But if you want to do a study yourself, I think it's also nice to watch this, because this way you know how this works. See you in the next one.